Hello and welcome to a pissed off edition of TJ's One of Us here at the Always Next Year podcast. And I'm not pissed off that the Philadelphia 76ers lost. That shit is going to happen. Philadelphia, y'all are the most bipolar fan base I have ever seen in my damn life. I guess we should just ship back to Australia Ben Simmons because he wasn't assertive, because he said the wrong damn things. I guess that we should just ostracize Amir Johnson for being a dumbass and have his phone out. I guess the entire team going cold means Brett Brown is a garbage basketball coach. I'm Shane Mead, host of TJ's One of Us today. I'm going to bring down, hopefully, some of you off the ledge right now. Make no mistake about it, this game one against the Brooklyn Nets at home as a 3 seed, a second year in a row 50-plus win season. They came out flat. They played bad. Joe is clearly not healthy. Ben did and said all of the wrong things. Brett didn't have his best game. This shit is going to happen. It is going to happen. But let's take a look at one of the positives. Jimmy Butler. Everyone's favorite target, Jimmy Butler. And we talked about it on several episodes of TJ's One of Us leading into the postseason. Which Jimmy Butler is going to show up for the playoffs? Well, he answered. Jimmy answered, right? Jimmy came out here, and Jimmy scored 36 points and had 9 boards. He also had 2 steals and 2 blocks. Played pretty damn good defense for the most part in that night. He got beat down low a couple times on some strong moves. But Jimmy Butler balled out. We all know what Jimmy's capable of doing. It's why we made this trade. It's why Elton Brand made that trade. It's why he shipped off 2 important pieces of the process. And Robert Covington, no matter how the hell much you people hated him, that man was a valuable basketball player for the Philadelphia 76ers. And then they shipped off their Swiss Army knife and fan favorite in Dario Saric, who maybe his ceiling wasn't quite as high as what we believed in Philadelphia, but he was a valuable piece nonetheless. And what did we get? We got a superstar in Jimmy Butler. Did he play that way all throughout the regular season? Certainly not. But this is the playoffs. This is Jimmy time. This is Jimmy season. This is the fourth quarter of the NBA season. This is when you're going to get the Jimmy Butler that you're going to pay for. And you better damn pay for him for reasons just like this. On a day where Tobias Harris, J.J. Redick, and Ben Simmons combined for 18 freaking points, and Tobias Harris played 40 minutes that night, 41 minutes. Those things are inexcusable, right? Here's the thing. It happens. And when they do happen, you got a guy, you got a killer in Jimmy Butler who's going to come out there and he's going to put the team on his back when he freaking needs to. We just so happen to go 3 of 22 from behind the arc. It's going to happen. This team is never going to play that consistently bad across the board, outside of Jimmy, again in this series. And to think that that's going to happen, it's so unrealistic. This team shoots a ton of threes. J.J. Redick is one of the better three-point shooters in the league, despite how many minutes are on that body and despite the way that he's definitely worn down. Tobias Harris, when he was in L.A., fantastic three-point shooter. Hasn't really flashed that with any consistency here in Philadelphia, but he's certainly capable, and he's going to take 3 balls. Scott out there, going to take 3 balls. To think this team is going to hit 3, it's like 12% of threes they hit in that game one. To think that that is sustainable, that's insane. That's as if we went out and shot 85% from 3 and thinking we're the best goddamn team in the NBA and we're never going to miss a shot again. It's not sustainable. You were never going to play that bad on any type of consistent basis. People need to calm the hell down. A couple things that you can be concerned about, and this is my biggest concern from this. Joel Embiid. JoJo is clearly not right. I know he only played 24 minutes, and if you just look at the stat line, you would assume Joe had a nice night. If you just look at the stat line in 24 minutes, Joel Embiid had 22 points, 15 boards, 4 assists, and he did have 5 blocks down low. On the floor, 5 of 15. It's not a good shooting day for him. From the line, he missed 6 free throws. It's not to say that his free throw percentage was horrendous, but Joe's an 80% free throw shooter. He shot 66% from the line. He also went 0 of 5 from 3. He was clearly not right. And the thing that's most concerning to me is when you take a look at the first 40, 45 games of the year, He led all big men in minutes. He may have actually led the NBA in minutes. I have to check on that stat to verify it, but he at least led big men in minutes. He very rarely had rest or any days off there. They burnt him the hell out. And then he goes and plays in the All-Star game, and whether he was hurt going into it and not feeling right, whether he got hurt at the All-Star game, I don't know. We still don't 100% know. He hasn't been right for the entire second half of the season. And we haven't gotten a straight goddamn answer from anybody. We haven't gotten it from Joe. We haven't gotten it from the medical team. Brett Brown's pissed off in interviews, and he doesn't want to talk about this shit anymore because no one knows. And you know how difficult Brett Brown's job must be, not knowing if the MVP of your team and potentially MVP of the league is or is not going to play, is or is not on a minutes restriction, will or will not get rest in a playoff series? How the hell hard is it to put together a game plan without Joe, without knowing what kind of Joe you're going to get? This team did a disservice to Joel Embiid by playing him the way that they did throughout the first half of this year. And it's biting him in the ass in the playoffs because you cannot get Joel Embiid, the MVP and best player on your team, for just 20 to 25 minutes a night. While the numbers are there, he did not knock down threes. Not that he's a very good three-point shooter, but he knocks down one or two, we can assume, on most nights. He's shooting 60% or 65% from the line as opposed to 80% from the line. That's a problem. His field goal percentage is down because his legs are tired. He's slow. He's not as sharp on defense. The 5 blocks are all well and good, but most of that is because he got beat and he just happens to be 7'2" and can make up for that at times. Also, I'm sick as hell right now, so if it sounds like I'm talking through my nose and shit, I am. Another bright spot, we're just going to keep bouncing all over the place right now because first of all, I'm like scrolling through Twitter whilst recording this, and people are losing their damn mind. But one thing we can also touch on a positive here, Brett Brown did utilize Bobby in the right way. 13 points, 3 boards, 4 assists. He was knocking down shots at a high percentage. He was 5 of 7 from the floor. He was okay in the paint in terms of rebounding. He's still really soft for a guy of his size, but he's just super awkward. But from a scoring standpoint, on a night where the rest of the team, outside of Jimmy, was really, really cold, he was able to step in there and hit shots with consistency, whether it be from 3 to 5 feet out from the basket, or whether it be from 10 to 12 feet out from the basket around that free throw line. He was able to knock down some shots, which is really important because we don't really know who the hell is backing up Joe, and we don't know if Joe's going to play on freaking Monday. We don't know what's happening right now. So to know that we can at least lean on him and he played 15, 18 minutes, something like that, in Game 1 here. To know that we have 15 to 18 minutes that we can lean on a guy who has shown the ability to score from at least 2 different spots, and on the occasion will pop a 3 now? Holy shit. That's huge. We don't know what we have in Greg Monroe. We don't know. I mean, Amir Johnson's not going to play, and Amir Johnson's probably going to get shot to the moon because the fan base is going to overreact to the fact that he has Self on the bench. Which I'm not condoning. I'm not saying it's a good thing. If you're Amir Johnson and you're there specifically to be a veteran presence, you got to do the right things. You've got to be, on a game like that where you're getting blown out on the home court, like, you've got to be the guy that sits there and helps rally these guys there. You've been around the NBA long enough. You've been around these guys long enough. You should be able to sit there and play a kind of role. Just because you're not on the court doesn't mean that you can't help this team. And you obviously hurt the team. And yes, I understand that people are going to blow this completely out of proportion and be super pissed off. Joe said in the post-game interview that Amir's daughter's sick. That may be the case. I don't know. They may be lying to cover. Who gives a shit? It was a cell phone, a flash second, and that's all people are going to remember about Game 1. They're going to say, Brett doesn't have a handle on his guys. Amir's not a veteran leader. Joel's not invested in the game. And suddenly, when you lose by 9 points, which, by the way, the loss was significantly worse than the 9 points that we lost by. They played like garbage. But the only thing that's going to come back from is the fact that that snapshot is going to tell the story of this game to a casual observer who checked in for 5 minutes or who looked on Twitter and saw Amir Johnson's on a goddamn cell phone. As minuscule as that was to the way this game played out, that's going to be the freaking story. And people are absolutely absurd about that. So let's talk about Ben Simmons real quick. Ben Simmons, no matter what you want, he has flaws to his game as most NBA players do. Yes, he will not shoot the three ball. Yes, he will not consistently pull up from any spot on the floor for a jump shot. He doesn't always drive with authority and more so drives with a spin. He's a big body. He's a strong and athletic dude. If he wants to get to the rim, that dude can get to the freaking rim. He's also shooting free throws better as the season went on. But he clearly does lack confidence, and that does bother me because he will not take the assertiveness to the rim in the ways that we know he can, because I don't think that he wants to shoot free throws in the playoffs, no matter how well he shot last year in the playoffs from the free throw line, comparatively to what he did during the regular season. It's all a problem, but when you do sit there, just set aside the emotion of this particular game, or if you're one of the people who sit there and say that Ben is completely cold and disappears in all big games, which you're wrong, by the way, but if you're saying that, let's just think logically for a minute. Remove the emotion. There are certain aspects of Ben's game that people will consistently criticize. His willingness to shoot a jump shot is right on up there, right up there. I don't know that people know it, but from 10 to 14 feet out, he actually doubled the percentages, he actually doubled the amount of shots he took during the regular season. He doubled the amount of jump shots he took from that range. The only range people want him to really be consistent to shoot from. He shot 71 shots his rookie year. This year he shot like 152. So he doubled it. And in doubling it, he also added percentages. He went from a 25% shooter from that line, or from that space, which is garbage, to a 31% shooter. Is that good? Absolutely freaking not. But there's a willingness that these people seem to just be blind to say that he will not shoot that shot. Well, he freaking will. He's shooting it at a significantly higher clip than what he was, and he's making them at least a little bit more. You want this man to make improvements. It's not going to happen overnight. But you cannot be completely obtuse to sit there and say that this man's not doing anything different in that particular respect of his game. He is. He's shot a handful of meaningful threes. Am I sitting there saying that that's an acceptable amount? No. You still need to pull up and shoot that more. But he's doing it at all this year, whereas he did not do it in the previous year. Then you have people sit there and criticize his intensity in a basketball game. He is solid on the defensive end. He's an awkward body. He's awkward in terms of who does he guard. I don't think that he is, as strong as he is and athletic as he is, I don't really think that he should be down low guarding anyone. And I think that his length at times becomes a problem for these quick twitch guards. And Brooklyn has two of them. Dinwiddie and Russell. They can get up and underneath him almost any time they want. And that's not necessarily a shot at his defense. It's more, this is physically how he's built and this is how his body moves. It's not his fault. He's just this awkward style for a defensive person to go up against those types of guards. It's not on him. What is concerning is the fact that neither Ben Simmons Tobias Harris has been horrendous defensively, but no one on this starting five or even in the 3-4-man bench that we're using here in the playoffs has really changed in terms of how they fight through screens and their communications. All the same issues that we've seen, and albeit they've only played 10, 11, 12 games together as a starting five and the rotations have been ever-changing, they don't communicate well. Brett Brown hasn't seen that or hasn't made the adjustments necessary. And I'm not saying that that's all on Brett Brown. It's not. There's a lot on the players there too. We all know I'm very pro Brett Brown, and I'm not prepared to say that he had a good game either. He certainly did not. He also made a dumbass comment, just like his point guard did, when he, before entering the series with Brooklyn, had already stated how difficult of a matchup they are for them and that they give them constant fits. Maybe instill some confidence in your guys, Brett. That was a jackass comment. But between the players and between the coach, when consistent, we saw it in, I believe it was Chicago, when they had to come back out and play the last second and a half again. Jimmy Butler got back to the bench after the game we thought was over and then had to come back out. He was frustrated in the camera. What we believe he was saying is, I told you that shit don't work. And it was the style of defense that Brett Brown is trying to make them play. Jimmy says that shit doesn't work. Well, I agree. Casual observers agree. People who watch every single 76ers game agree. This defense isn't good. They are beat by the exact same things night in and night out. And the Brooklyn Nets destroy them on these things. We essentially just let guards walk up and take jump shots from damn near anywhere. And they're very, very good shooters. That's a problem. They haven't figured out a way to sit there and guard any of the switches and to fight through screens. They haven't found a way to communicate yet. That's concerning. The fact that not your point guard and leader on the court in Ben Simmons, and I know he's young, but he's got to speak up. He has to be some sort of a vocal leader, especially if he's one of the ones fighting through some of those screens. That can't happen. Brett's got to realize that. Other players on the floor have got to communicate that not only to each other, but to Brett and to the coaching staff and reiterate, this shit doesn't work. All of this being said, to think that we are now going to be swept by the Brooklyn freaking Nets is hilarious to me. There is entirely too much talent in a starting five that are all going to feature, well, Joe might feature a little bit less, and JJ may feature a little bit less just due to his minutes, or due to his mileage on his legs. But for the most part, your starting five is going to play 38 to 40 minutes a night, especially if the game's meaningful. There's no way to sit there and think that this team gets swept. There's no way to sit there. I still don't think there's any way to sit here and conceivably tell myself the Brooklyn freaking Nets are going to come in and beat the 76ers in a 7-game freaking series in the first round of the playoffs. It doesn't make sense to me. I understand what Brooklyn does well to reiterate Brett Brown's dumbassery of comments, but I'm not the one speaking for the team. I'm just speaking about them. They do give us fits. I get that. But when you have Ben Simmons, when you have Joel Embiid, if he can get his body right, if he is healthy, and if he's not, and if he's 65% of Joe, and we got Marjanovic playing the way that he did on whatever the hell night this first game was, okay. When you got Tobias Harris, if he can start shooting the basketball again, and he only took 7 shots, that did piss me off. You have to shoot the bat. You are a shooter. You're a liability on defense. Shoot the goddamn basketball. You got to be willing to shoot the three. You got to be willing to pull up and spot up from 14 feet out. You got to do this. It's the whole freaking reason you're here. And whether or not we bring you back next year, we just shipped off Landry Shamet for you, and you can't shoot the damn basketball in the playoffs. Shoot the ball. That being said, he is going to shoot the ball because he's a professional NBA freaking basketball player who we brought him for that very reason. He had one game like that. I guarantee he's going to come out night 2. And he's going to come out and be a completely different shooter with a different mentality because he's going to hear that. He's going to hear it from his teammates. He's going to hear it from social media because these guys listen. They see what's going on. They see what's being said. They know what's going on, and they know their own game. He's going to come out, and he's going to show a different level of assertiveness, and he's going to be fine. And then you got Jimmy Butler, who, if there was ever any doubt that Jimmy Butler, the playoff Jimmy Butler, was going to show up, well, he put that to rest. 36 points in night 1 and basically attempted to put the team on his back, being the only consistent NBA player on the floor for the Philadelphia 76ers that night. Jimmy Butler's going to be Jimmy Butler. He's going to do Jimmy Butler things. Bench is what the bench is. We know it's soft. We know it's weak. We may be getting James Ennis back, which is nice. That'll certainly add some depth. What I do think Brett Brown needs to entertain and needs to trust in is a freakishly athletic swingman in Zaire Smith. Zaire Smith, with his defensive ability and his ability to get through screens and to be a smart player on the defensive side of the court, even if he's a small liability in the offensive side, because his shot is ugly, he's not quite developed yet in terms of the playbook and the style of play here with the 76ers. Bottom line is these guards are scoring at will for Brooklyn, and they've done it all year long. If Zaire Smith can sit there and make life a little bit more difficult for them, maybe he's got to be on the floor. And in my opinion, he needs to. He can't get 21 seconds of meaningful basketball in the playoffs before you were being blown out and then play the last 2 minutes of a game. You got to find a way to work Zaire Smith in. And I think he's the perfect answer to a Brooklyn run that they're inevitably going to go on because it's the NBA freaking A. My last announcement here for all 76ers fans who listen to our podcast, for everyone who listens to me, for everyone who reads my Twitter, relax. Just calm the hell down and get off Ben's ass. I know he said one of the most dumbass things you can possibly say in the city of Philadelphia as an athlete. He knows that. He's going to go home. He's going to regret that. He's going to come out and be freaking assertive too. He's going to come out in game 2 and you're going to see a different Ben Simmons. He knows he fucked up. Fine. This is an emotional game. It's an emotional time. It's the playoffs. These guys are human beings and they're going to react how their emotions tell them to react. Not everyone has the ability to sit there at the press conference table, and even though everyone in the world knows you're an asshole, Jimmy Butler, you said all the right things because he's been there. Ben Simmons really hasn't. Last year, Ben Simmons, first full season, first time in the playoffs. He's still young. He's still getting used to it. He's going to be fine. Get off his ass. Tobias Harris, you're not going to see another Tobias Harris game like you saw in night 1. I know that there's next to nothing that happened over his short term in the regular season with the 76ers that should give me that confidence. But I look at the player, I look at the skill set, and I look at what we acquired him for, and I look at the stage, and I say, in my head, I'm applying logic. This doesn't make sense. It's not feasible to sit there and believe that he is going to continue to be this passive and this bad. Not for a whole 7-game series. So the 76ers will certainly not be swept. I still 100% believe that the Philadelphia 76ers will win this series. Will they win it in 5 games? I don't know. Will they win it in 6? Probably. Point of this is, relax. Just calm the hell down. It's the Brooklyn Nets. 4 superstars, or 3.5 superstars, as I continue to say, on our starting 5, on paper, playing 40 minutes a night. They're going to beat most teams in the East, or at least be competitive to a 6 or 7 game series against most teams in the East. 76ers are back at it tomorrow night on their home court again, and you're going to see a different team. You're going to see a different version of Brett Brown. You're going to see a different Ben Simmons. Jimmy Butler's going to come in there and he's going to do Jimmy Butler things. This is going to be a significantly better product on Monday than what you're going to see, or than what we saw in game 1. Sorry, super sick here, so I'm cutting this one down. But I'll be back on Tuesday for a game 2 recap for when the 76ers inevitably blow out the Nets, because it's what's going to happen, and everyone needs to calm the hell down. But that'll wrap it up for TJ's One of Us playoff recap of Game 1. The 76ers are back at 8 o'clock on Monday night. And like I said, Tuesday I'll record the next episode. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. It's at AMY Podcast. You can also follow us on Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you listen to podcasts. There we go. We are on. So go ahead, give us a rating and review. The next person to give us a rating and review, a written review, gets an autographed picture of Rob's face, because that's hilarious. And then we have a bunch of other giveaways and shit like that. You can also follow me, the host of this segment, at Shane_Mead, and then you can follow the part-time host of this segment, and that is Kevin K. His Twitter is at Kevman316. There we go. And we will see you back with another episode of TJ's One of Us for the Always Next Year podcast.